Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Data Playbook. We have our Week 11 Sunday games to go through now, so we're going to go through those one by one. So let's get into it. Getting into our next Sunday divisional matchup, you have Cincinnati facing off against Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh's favored on the money line with a spread of 5.5 and a total line of 48.5. As usual, I'll switch over to our averages and just break down our teams, where we have Cincinnati really bad in the rushing department for both offense and defense. Worst in the league for both rushing and allowed rushing. Pretty bad with tight ends, especially at allowing tight ends, and really bad at allowing passing. Allowed scoring, they're worst in the league. So defensively, they might be the worst team. Offensively, again, that rushing rank's really bad, but your passing rank's okay, and your scoring rank's okay. So they might be able to offset some of that rushing, but their rushing is just terrible. With Pittsburgh, it's a little bit more mixed, with some stuff that's about average. With your scoring rank, your allowed rushing rank's about average, your tight end's a little better, but your rushing rank's still really bad too. Your passing rank's pretty bad. Your allowed passing rank's the worst in the league, and the allowed scoring rank's pretty bad. And then getting into our individual stats with our quarterbacks, you have Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers, where Joe Flacco has averaged 15.7 fantasy points per game. Aaron Rodgers really close to that too with 15.1. Joe Flacco has 8 interceptions this season, with 3 fumbles lost due to sacks. Aaron Rodgers has 7 interceptions this season and no other turnovers. So now here's your player averages, along with their carry share, where you have Joe Flacco with very little around here, maybe about 6 or 7%, but his rushing yard share is even lower, probably about 3 or 4%. With Aaron Rodgers, a similar story, with a rushing carry share of maybe about 6 or 7%, but a rushing yard share of about maybe 1%. And right before we get into our running backs, we can just see those numbers where Joe Flacco gets about 8.6% of the team's rushing carry share, 4.23% of the rushing yard share. For Aaron Rodgers, it's 6.7% of the rushing carry share and 2.38% of the rushing yard share. Otherwise, for our running backs, we have Chase Brown and Jaylen Warren, where Chase Brown averages about 12.8 fantasy points per game, and Warren averages about 13.7. With no turnovers given up by either running back, we'll just go straight to the averages. And then look at their carry share, with Chase Brown getting 66.3% of the team's rushing carry share, about 61.2% of the team's rushing yard share. Jaylen Warren getting about 57.9% of the team's rushing carry share, and about 62.78% of the team's rushing yard share. That is a pretty significant amount for Jaylen Warren, with the next largest amount coming from his backup, Kenneth Gainwell, at 26.6% and 29% of the receiving yard share. And similar story for Chase Brown, with his backup, Perrine, getting about that 20%, maybe 25% rushing yard share. So about a quarter of that is taken by the backup. And over here, almost about a third for Jaylen Warren's taken by his backup. Now for our receivers, you have Jamar Chase and DK Metcalf, where Jamar Chase has averaged 20.8 fantasy points per game, and DK Metcalf has averaged 12.5. There has been one turnover that came from Jamar Chase, which was a receiving fumble, and none from DK Metcalf. So now there's your averages. And if we look at their breakdown on the team, you get Jamar Chase with 34.5% of the team's target share and 38.7% of the team's receiving yard share, which is the largest of anybody on the team. With Metcalf, you get about 21.6% of the team's target share, or 28% of the team's receiving yard share, which is also the largest on the team, but not as large of a slice as Jamar Chase. For your number 2 receivers, you have T. Higgins and Calvin Austin, with Higgins averaging 13.1 fantasy points per game and Austin averaging 8.1. With no turnovers from either player here, we'll just move to our averages. And then looking at their share, you get T. Higgins with 18.1% of the team's target share. That comes out to be 22.4% of the team's receiving yard share. And that is the second largest of anybody on the team, as expected for the number 2 receiver. With Calvin Austin, he gets 14.4% of the team's target share and 13.2% of the team's receiving yard share. That one battles a little bit more to be the second or third largest on the team, so he's not quite as utilized as much as maybe DK Metcalf, or it's more spread about. And with Pittsburgh, it's more spread about with everybody else. Lastly, ending with our tight ends, you have Noah Fant and Jonnu Smith. With Fant, he gets 9 fantasy points per game, and Jonnu Smith gets about 6.1. The only turnovers come from Noah Fant, with 1 receiving fumble. And then here's their averages, as well as we look at their share, with Noah Fant getting about 9% of the team's target share, and about 10.3% of the team's receiving yard share. With Jonnu Smith, unfortunately, we can't exactly see those numbers very well, But if I bring up Calvin Austin, we can see that Jonnu Smith is this piece of the pie. So he gets about 14.4% of the target share and 9.1% of the team's receiving yard share. That puts him in about the third or fourth spot for receiving on Pittsburgh. So this could be a close matchup. It just depends on how the teams play. With Cincinnati, you have a passing rank of 10 over this allowed passing rank of 32. So if the Bengals come out and throw the ball really well, they might be able to really run it up on Pittsburgh. They have a decent scoring rank, but they're really bad at preventing scoring. So that might be the trick with Pittsburgh is can they really stop them? Of course, you have a really bad rushing rank, but you're against the worst team at stopping the rush. Pretty bad passing rank against a really bad team at stopping the pass, so Steelers could just push their way through it as well. This could be a coin toss based on how both teams end up coming out and what their plan to play is like. So we'll just have to see how it works out. And there's your numbers for that game. I hope that you found it useful, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe, and otherwise comment on what else you want to see in the future. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next matchup.